Alright, I think I'm ready for this. Alright, so what you guys just saw there is the Reaper of Winter boss. Now, I made this a while ago in a live stream, but unfortunately I never had the opportunity to make the tutorial until now, so I apologize for it being so delayed compared to what it should have been. But yeah, you guys can get an idea. That's how close I was to killing the boss. I was one arrow away from killing him. But yeah, let me show you what these bosses' attacks actually are. So we have a little altar over here, but I'm going to go over to the commands for the rest of the demonstration. So I think there's actually a little bit more command blocks here than there has been in my other bosses. We have a couple unique attacks that we're going to work through. But if you've seen my other boss videos, it's kind of a similar concept where boss has like some attacks that it can do that it will kind of randomly rotate between. And then once you get it below half health, it's going to unlock its second phase, which is what's going to give it a new and unique attack. So for the example that we have here, just gonna throw my spawner block down here. All we're doing to actually get started, similar to the other ones, we have a little cutscene that gets started. What we're doing here is we just throw a bone, just any bone, on top of a blue ice block. And that's what's gonna start the summoning sequence, same as the other bosses I've made. I think I missed. To throw it, same as the other bosses I've made in the past. We have a little cutscene that spawns in, some little tykes in the title sequence, winter draws near, and you can see I just got frozen. That's one of the attacks that it does. So, the two main attacks that this boss has, I'm just going to let it show you, although you kind of already saw it a little bit. I'm just going to wait for him to do it real quick. So this is the Seeker attack. It follows along the ground towards you, and you can avoid it as long as you keep moving, but... and this is his other attack. He basically shoots this line of coldness at you. So I'm actually going to get hit by both of these just so you guys can see it. Even though I'm in creative, it's going to be a little bit different. But we did both at the same time. I'm going to dodge that one. The Seeker's coming towards me, and if it hits me, boom, I get put in powdered snow. I get slowed a lot, and I start taking damage. The other thing is this, which is, like I said, kind of a line, almost like a blade of cold that it shoots towards you. He will basically summon it over himself, it will target the player, and then it's going to shoot off in whatever direction originally targeted. And the Seeker, you can see it's going to go along the ground, and actually if I have blocks, it's going to climb up over the blocks. So I will just demonstrate that here, once it does it again. The Seeker won't fly through the air, but it will actually climb over blocks to get to you, so it kind of like tracks along the ground basically. You can see the Seeker's going to start climbing up blocks to get to us. So it's not even like it's a projectile, it's almost like a little Seeker that travels along the ground. And then get out of the water. Thank you. That's its primary attacks. What we're gonna do is we're gonna get it down to second phase when we break the totem of undying. So a blizzard is coming. Let's see, it says in chat, collect fire sparks from the Reaper to keep warm. So what's going to happen is that as I'm near this guy, I'm going to start getting these particle effects built up on my screen. It's basically a blizzard that's slowly building up. And see, now it's going to say freezing, find heat now. So what I need to do is find these fire sparks. I need to collect them, and that's going to reset my blizzard count. So the boss is going to occasionally drop these fire sparks, and you need to go over to them and collect them in order to not freeze to death while you're fighting the boss. So it's kind of unique. The second phase basically has this environmental hazard that you actually have to stay near the boss in order to get rid of. That way you can't just snipe it from afar and be able to take it out. You actually have to go over and collect the fire sparks. And then obviously I killed it. So yeah, you guys can see basically what the whole boss fight is. So these commands are here. These are going to be the summoning commands. I'm going to take this shield off if you don't, I just don't mind it. This is going to be the summoning commands. You can see we have all the effects that's going to be given, the armor and equipment that's going to be given, as well as the camera commands. That's going to give it the little cutscene-like thing when you spawn in. Next up, we actually have I believe this is the Cold Blade, so you get the like 5 I'll explain these a little bit more. So the cold blade is basically this thing. Someone's above the boss and then it shoots off towards the enemy, so you have to dodge out towards the side. This command basically summons it. So I'm going to call it the cold blade now. So the next one that we have is actually going to be the freezing thing that goes along the ground. So originally this was going to place you in ice, but I actually switched it out for powdered snow because it works a lot better in game. That's all this is. The next thing we have is pretty simple. This is just going to basically move it over to the next phase. So once the Tone of Undying is broken, so the boss is halfway through its health bar, it's going to enter its second phase, which unlocks the third basically attack, but it's kind of more of an environmental hazard. So like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on with the boss. It's kind of complicated, but you guys seem to like my last two boss fights, so I thought I'd make something kind of complicated for you guys to enjoy. So basically, these set of commands is going to make it so that you have a scoreboard that's adding up, and I'll show you on the side of the screen. So this will be a little bit easier. I'm going to summon the boss in real quick. And I'm just going to knock him down to half health so you can see the blizzard attack. Okay, so now you guys can see on the side of my screen my blizzard score is counting up. So as long as I am near the stray, my blizzard score is going to be counting up. The higher it goes, you'll see I'm going to start getting slowness. And once it gets to a certain point, it's actually going to be, you can see it's kind of piling up particles on my screen. And you're also going to hear sound effects like it's cold blowing in my ears. If I were in survival, I'd be taking a lot of damage that I'd basically be dead right now. So what I need to do is find these little fire sprites that the boss is dropping as he's going along. If I pick these up, it's actually going to reset my cold. Now, once it gets to 20 seconds of blizzard, you are going to start taking damage. So you really need to stay near the boss in order to pick up these fire sprites if you don't want to freeze to death. So once you get into the second phase, you have to be managing a lot of stuff at the same time. Number one, the stray is going to be shooting arrows at you. Number two, he's going to be shooting those little cold blades at you. Number three, he's going to be having seeking trackers that are going to go along the ground. Get out of the water. I don't know why they keep going into the water. And number four, you actually have to stay near the boss to pick up these fire sprites so that way you don't freeze to death. So there's a lot of stuff going on all at the same time, and it makes for a very difficult boss. So I hope you guys enjoy the challenge, and let's get right into the commands. So to start off, we have 4 scoreboards that you guys are going to need to make in order for this to work. I have them in command blocks just for them to be displayed. Now you can type them in chat exactly how you see them in the command block, or you can put them in an impulse command to power it, just like this. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it. The scoreboards just need to be created. The first scoreboard is just going to be called Stray. The next one, Cold. The next one, Ice. And the next one is Blizz, short for Blizzard. That's going to be the first and most important thing, because if you don't do that, absolutely none of this is going to work. And if you have seen my other videos, by the way, my other 2 boss fight videos, a lot of this is going to be kind of similar. So if you've done them before, this will be probably easier for you. But the next set of commands we have are the spawning ones. So what we're going to do here is we're going to check for anything that is named bone and has a score of stray 1 through 10. If so, it's going to run some particles just right there. All this means is that whenever there is a bone block on here, there's going to be some extra particles that are spawning on top of it. Nothing too fancy there. Alright, the next thing we're going to be doing, and this is on a 5-tick delay, so we're executing at anything named bone. If the block below it is blue ice, then it's going to add the score straight to 1. So basically, as long as an item named bone, and I will show you over here. So basically, you can see on the side of the screen, there's nothing with the tag stray. As long as there's a bone on top, it's going to start counting up. And that's going to be the starting sequence for the boss fight. So you do have a chance if you decide you don't want to fight it after you drop it, you can pick it up and the boss won't even spawn in. So next up, we're going to be doing just something similar. We're checking for the bone. If it has a stray score of 1 through 10, that means it's adding up, preparing for the boss to be spawning. It's going to have the Minecraft knockback roar particle, which is the roar particle for the Ravager. And that's what the bigger cloud that you guys see is whenever I throw it on here. The big cloud is the roar particle. Next up, we're going to do the play sound. So you guys kind of hear that like almost cold wind sound that's being played. What we're doing is we're actually using the Trident Riptide noise, but it's the same deal. We're just checking for the bone and the stray score of 1 through 10. Next up, we're going to actually summon in the stray itself, and we're calling it the Reaper of Winter. Now, if you want to change the boss's name, you can just go ahead and change it right here. However, there are a few other commands that use the name of the boss, and if you change it here, you have to change it everywhere to be the exact same name, or stuff won't work. So do keep that in mind. There's other commands that you're going to have to change the name of if you decide to change the name of the boss. The other thing that we're checking for is if the bone exists and its stray score is 11. This means that it's gone through all the seconds of preparing to spawn in and is now actually going to be spawning in. Then we're going to give the Reaper of Winter resistance. We're going to give it for a duration of 10 and a multiplier of 3. I know that says 2, but it starts at 0. It's weird. Trust me, that means 3. So it has a resistance of 3. And next up, we're going to give it fire resistance. This is just going to make it so it's not burning in the sun, because it'd be kind of easy if a boss could just be killed by sunlight. And finally, we're going to be killing the bone. So after it spawns in, it's just going to kill the bone, have the thing spawned in. Pretty simple. Next up, we're going to actually start doing the equipping of the boss. So the first thing we're going to be doing is giving it health boost. So if it has the name Reaper of Winter but does not have the tag Stray, then it's going to go ahead and give it health boost. Now once we give the tag Stray, all that means is that it's done being set up. So once the Reaper of Winter has the tag Stray, and there's a volcano erupting, once the Reaper of Winter has the tag Stray, it's going to go ahead and stop getting set up. It'll be done and ready to fight. Next up, we are going to be giving instant damage to the stray. It's going to be for 5 seconds with a multiplier of 20. Now you might be asking, why are we damaging the boss? We're not. We're actually healing it so that way it's at full health for the start of the fight. Since it's an undead mob though, it needs to take instant damage in order to be healed. I apologize for the volcano. We done yet? Anywho. Next thing we're going to be doing is simply giving it a Totem of Undying. This is just more or less how we detect when we've got it through half health. Then we're going to be giving it armor, so exactly the same command. I'm just going to go through these really quick, pause it if you need to. And this is just going to give it chainmail armor. Of course, if you want to change the armor, just change this item right here to whatever type of armor you want. Pretty simple right there. Now, the next line that we have is going to be on a 0-tick delay, and we're just going to basically start adding the stray score to the stray. Pretty simple, and I'll show you what that looks like real quick. If I actually throw the boss down here, you'll see the stray is adding up, and that score is actually just for the cutscene. I'm just going to kill this guy real quick. Boop. Oh, no, he dropped a bone. Let's pick that up. Or summon another one. But basically, the stray score, after it's summoning in the stray with using the bone, the stray score is also going to be used for the cutscene. So all we're doing here is just adding the stray score to the Reaper of Winter. We're going to teleport the Reaper of Winter still, and we're going to make it face the nearest player. This is so that way it's not moving during the actual cutscene, and it's going to be looking at the player, which makes it a little bit more intimidating. Next up, we're going to actually change the camera positioning. So what we're doing here is we're checking for the Reaper of Winter that does not have the tag Stray. Remember, that means it's fully done being set up. If so, we're going to do this for all players within 40 blocks. And we're going to just have it be free. We're going to set its position to basically in front of the face of the actual stray. That way it's almost looking straight at the camera in that position. Next up, what we're going to be doing is we're going to have a little bit of a fade in and a fade out. So this makes it look like it's not just harshly cutting, it's going to kind of fade to black quickly and then fade out. And we're going to do this again. And one thing I forgot to point out is that the first camera fade right here is when the stray score is 1. So this is at the very start of the cutscene. This is the exact same command here, except it's at 39. So that's going to be the exact end of the cutscene. Next up, we are basically going to check, hey, is there a stray that is done, like it's finished the command so it doesn't have the tag stray? We're going to go ahead and camera clear itself. This is just going to make it so you're done you're moved out of the position, you're no longer going to be in the cutscene mode, and you're going to be back to your normal camera. Then what we're going to do is we're going to give the tag Stray to the Reaper of Winter. This is just letting it know, hey, you are done being set up. Once your Stray score is 40, you're done being set up and the actual boss fight can begin. Then we just have some extra stuff, so we're going to have a little bit of a camera shake that's happening during the duration of this. This is what this command is for. Then we're going to have a little bit of sound that's going to be playing during the cutscene, in this case Broken Glass. Then we're going to have a little thing that's going to pop up in the chat during the cutscene. So this is stray equals 1. Once again, I'm not going to explain all the commands, just copy them. I'm just going to only explain some of them. But this is basically just saying winter draws near. If you guys want to change the little message that pops up during the fight, go ahead and change the stuff that's in this last set of quotations. Don't change anything else, it will mess up, but if you change what's in these quotations, you can make it whatever you want. And finally, we're just going to be making it so that all players are facing the Reaper of Winter. I should say all players within range. This means that after the cutscene's done, they're not just off looking in a random direction, they're looking right where the boss is, and they're ready to fight him. Not a necessary thing, but it makes it just a little bit smoother getting into that boss fight. Next up, we have the first attack. What we're going to be doing here in this command block is that any armored stand with the name cold is going to have its cold score added up to 1. So let me switch over my scoreboards real quick. And the other thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be having it so that any armor stand named cold is going to be having that riptide trident noise that we were playing earlier. So it sounds like a gust of wind is blowing past your face whenever you dodge this or get hit by this attack. So now what we're going to be doing is removing the score cold from everything that has the tag stray. So anything that's going to have the tag stray, it's just going to be the boss as soon as it is finished with its cutscene. So just to show you what that's going to look like, put another bone here. It's going to go through, it's going to do the cutscene, camera shake and all that. Then you can see the numbers that are adding up, those are those projectiles. But now it's counting down, and it's going to be a different number. As soon as it hits -1, it's going to start up the attack again. As you can see, it's ready and it shoots off. This is how we control how often it does the attack, and it's cool because it does randomize it, so it's not like it's always going to be exactly on a rhythm. But yeah, you guys can see we use the cold tag for both the cooldown and for the duration of the projectiles. You can see all the projectiles are adding up. As soon as they hit their top score, they go ahead and delete themselves at around 100. Pretty simple, but I just want to show you guys how that's working. Okay, so we have the cold score 1 being removed from the stray every 10 ticks. Should mention, yes, this is only 10 tick delay. So what we're going to do is whenever the cold score equals -1, whenever you see cold equals -1, that means the stray is ready to fire. It's going to go ahead and do this animation. That's just going to give it a little visual effect to make sure you're fully aware of what's happening. Then we're going to be doing some stuff where we're basically summoning a bunch of armor stamps named cold. Now this is pretty simple at the moment. We're just summoning it right above the skeleton. Now we're doing the exact same thing, except instead of doing it right above the skeleton, we're going to be summoning a different armor stand in a slightly different position. Once again, different armor stand, slightly different position. Once again, different armor stand, slightly different position. Different armor stand, slightly different position. And now what we're going to be doing is we're going to take the closest armor stand to the stray, the one that was spawned in the middle, and we're going to give it the tag center. This way, all the other armor stands that were spawned know which one is supposed to be the center of their attack, and they're going to spread out based on where the center is facing. Next, we're going to give all the armor stands invisibility, because you don't want to see that. It'd be kind of weird if you see the armor stands floating around. Finally, we're going to give the stray a random cold score. So this is how long between each of its cold blade or ice blade attacks that it's going to have. So right now we basically have it set between 12 and 40. And if you want it to happen more often, you want to make these numbers lower. If you want to have it happen less often, make these numbers higher. This is just going to choose a random number between 12 and 40, and that's going to be how long between each of these attacks is going to happen. Next up, we have in this repeating commands. All that we're going to be doing here is making sure that the cold armor stands are just teleporting in place. This is just going to prevent them from falling down due to gravity. Finally, what we're going to be doing is giving them particles. So this is how you can visually see them. Since remember the armor stands are invisible, we want to take the particles, not the armor stands. And what we're going to be doing here is making it so if you guys remember in the attack, it summons the armor stands and they don't immediately attack. They kind of hover in place for a few seconds before actually going on the attack. What's happening here is that the armor stand is named cold, but only specifically the center one is going to be teleported in place facing the nearest player. Then we're going to have all the other armor stands copying the rotation of the one of the center. That way they're all facing in exactly the same direction. And we're going to be doing that for the first 20 ticks. You guys can see the cold score is 1 through 20 that we're going to be teleporting them in place. Once they hit 21, then they're going to start teleporting forward, and that's what this command here does. Next up, this is the actual damage command. So we're going to be checking for anything with a cold score and it's greater than 21. We're just going to be going down because the armor stands are kind of higher than what they seem. We're going to be damaging, and if you guys want to change how much damage this does, you can go ahead and change this number right here, but I just have it at 6. Like I said, you can make it higher or you can make it lower. It's entirely up to you. And we're making the damage source to be the actual stray. Next up, we're just going to kill the cold once their cold score is over 100. This is so they don't go on infinitely. This is just going to give them a pretty good range, but they're not going to go on with infinite range. And finally, we're going to give slowness to any player that's actually hit by it. So as soon as one of these projectiles hits you, it's going to give you about 5 seconds of slowness too. That way it's even more of a point that you want to dodge these, because if you get slowed, it's a lot easier for a bunch of other things to start damaging you. But that's it for the first attack. So now we're going to take a look at the second one. If you remember, the second one, it's the Seeker Bolt that kind of travels along the ground. And if it hits you, it's going to encase you with snow. It's going to deal a decent bit of damage and slow you for a decent chunk of time, which also makes you really vulnerable to other attacks. So you really want to avoid this one at all costs. So the first thing we're going to be doing is checking for an armor stand named Ice and adding up its ice score. I'll go ahead and change my scoreboard on the side of the screen so you guys can see what's going on. So similar to how cold was the projectile over here, the projectile armor stand is going to be named Ice for this attack. And it's also going to have this little sound effect as it's going along the ground. That's what's giving it this kind of ice, broken glass type sound as it's traveling. Going to go ahead and spawn this guy in here so you can go ahead and see what's happening. But it's very similar to what happens with the last projectile. So the projectile is going to be using the ice timer, and you can see it's adding up. Once it hits a certain amount of time, it's going to die. And similarly, the same scoreboard is going to be used on the stray to dictate its cooldown. Now for this one, the cooldown is much longer because it's a stronger attack, but it's still the same principle. So once it hits -1, it's going to go ahead and it is going to shoot off. And as you can see, it's going to follow me. It's going to stay on the ground. It's going to go ahead and try to climb over things to get to me. But that's pretty much how the attack works. Now I'll just show you one final time what it looks like when it hits me. Boom, I get put in powdered snow. I get slowness really bad. And I just get frostbite. And it's really dangerous for a little bit of time. And I'm super vulnerable to other attacks. But you guys can see how strong and how unique of an attack that one is. So let's get back into the commands of what's going on here. I already showed you these two, so now we're going to talk about how we actually spawn it in, and then what it does. So the first tower here is going to be on a 10 tick delay. That is important. We're going to be removing 1 ice from the stray every 10 ticks. This is the cooldown that we talked about earlier. The summoning here is pretty similar to what's over here, except we're only summoning 1 armor stand instead of 5. Then we're going to go ahead and do this little animation as soon as it is ready to fire off the attack. Then we're going to actually summon in the attack, simply summoning an armor stand named Ice. Then we're going to, of course, give invisibility so we can't see the armor stands. And finally, we're going to reset the cooldown. It's the same concept, except that we have a little bit of higher numbers here. We're using 20 and 60. This just means it's going to be a longer cooldown. But at the same time, it's going to be randomized, so you can't always exactly predict when it's going to attack. Next up, similar to over here, we're going to just giving it a particle. This is what we have right here. Then we have another particle, because we do have multiple particles going on. Then this is how we're going to make it track along the ground. So as long as it's able to, it's going to always be teleporting down. But if there's a block preventing it from going down, it's simply going to not teleport down. Simple as that. And similarly, we're going to be trying to always be teleporting it up. So this is making it so it's always trying to go up, and if it ever gets stuck, it's just going to start teleporting up and climbing whatever hill it's on. And as soon as there's air blocks below it where it can go down, it is going to go down. Now we need to get into the actual physics of what's going to be happening with this projectile, how it's tracking, and what happens when it hits us. So all we're going to be doing here is making it so that it is always teleporting at us, as long as it is named ice and does not have the tag hit. So the tag hit is going to represent what happens when it actually comes into contact with the player. So now, if it does not have the tag hit, but a player is beside it, within 0.3 blocks, we're going to run the damage. It's going to be 5 damage of the freezing type, and it's going to be based on the nearest stray. Next up, we're going to actually place the powdered snow. Originally, when I designed this, it was supposed to be ice, but ice has some weird stuff going on, whereas powdered snow is designed to keep players in it, so powdered snow seems like the better option. But if you guys do want to change it, you can go ahead and replace powdered snow with ice if you want. Anyways, all we're checking that is that if the name ice has the score ice equals 1 and does not have the tag hit, so this means it's summoned in and it doesn't have the tag hit yet, it's going to go ahead and fill basically a column of powdered snow wherever the player is. However, it's not going to replace any existing blocks, so you don't have to worry about this destroying your arena. Next up, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be checking for the thing named ice that does not have the tag hit yet. If there's a player within range, it's going to go ahead and set itself to ice score of 0. Then, while it has the ice score of 0, it's going to teleport itself in place for the duration of this time. Because basically, once the projectile hits the player, what it's actually going to do is it's going to linger for a bit, so that way whenever the duration's up, it's going to go ahead and remove the powdered snow automatically. What's going to happen here, kill no hit if you read the title of the command block. If it does not have the tag hit, and it goes on for long enough, it lives too long without hitting the player, it's not going to live forever, it's just going to die. Then if it does have the tag hit, so it has hit the player, and its ice score is 70 or above, it's just going to get rid of the powdered snow, so that way the powdered snow isn't lingering forever. Next, what we're going to be doing is basically just giving some heavy slowness to any player that's been hit by the powdered snow. After that, we're going to actually check if the thing has even hit it. So basically, we're going to be checking for the ice particle, the projectile. If it's right beside a player, it's going to have the tag hit. This lets it know that it has been hit and it's going to do all the things that we already told it to do. And it's not going to repeat them. Then we're going to have a little play sound that happens whenever the hit occurs. And finally, we're going to kill it after it removes the powdered snow. I apologize if that was kind of confusing or a lot to take in. If you're confused, just pause it on each command and make sure that you have it typed exactly how you see it, with the right commas, the right parentheses, and all that type of stuff. Next up, and we finally have a short tower, because thank goodness these are all huge sections. This is simply going to move it into the second phase. This is going to check, is the totem of undying on the stray gone, meaning that it has been knocked out of its first phase into the second. Then it's going to basically just re-heal it and then allow it to do its final attack for the second phase. So all we're going to be doing is checking, does the Reaper of Winter have the tag Stray? That means it finishes cutscene, but does not have the tag Blizz. If it does have the tag Blizz, that means it's in the second phase. And also, does it not have a totem? So we're checking for a totem with a quantity of 0. So if it doesn't have a totem, it's going to have its health boost restored. Then exact same command here, we're just going to be instant damaging it, so it's going to start healing again. Then it's going to give a little warning in chat for all the players. So it's the exact same stuff that we have up here. That we're doing a tell raw, and we're saying, hey, blizzard is coming. Then we have this little fancy thing, which is a backslash and then the letter N. This just means it's going to be a new line, and that the next set of text that's following it is going to be an entirely new line. Then it's going to be telling people, collect fire sparks from the Reaper to keep warm. As always, if you want to change what this text says, change it in the quotations, but this just lets players know how to fight the boss. Finally, we're going to give the Reaper of Winter, the actual boss, the tag Blizz, and this is just going to let it know, hey, we're in the second phase, go ahead and start doing all the second phase type stuff. And remember, during the second phase, all this stuff, these other attacks are still going on, we just also have this stuff going on over here on this side. And it is going to get a little complicated. I'm going to switch my scoreboard back to Blizz. And I already showed how the blizzard worked with the scoreboard, just try to keep that in mind. The blizzard score is going to be going up on the player unless they collect a fire spark, which is going to reset it. And that's really the most important part to remember of how this is going to work. So all we're doing on a 20 tick delay, so that means once a second, we're going to be adding a blizzard score to all players within 40 blocks of the boss. And this is going to reset it. So basically, if there is no boss nearby, it's going to reset the player's score to 0. So that way they're not having a permanent blizzard if they're not even near the boss fight. Next up, we're actually going to be summoning the little fire sprites. So it's going to happen on a 100 tick delay, which is every 5 seconds. The boss is going to spawn an armor stand named Fire. Now this armor stand is going to be immediately set invisible because we don't want to see that. Next thing that we're doing is we're going to be anything named Fire, so that's the little fire sprite armor stand that we spawned. We're going to be adding their blizzard score to 1. This is just going to be their timer. This is just making it so they don't live too long by accident. And then if their blizzard score gets above 20, it's just going to kill it. Like I said, we're just using the existing scoreboard in order to have a timer. There's not much importance to what's going on here. We're going to be checking for anything named Fire, that is the fire sprites, and we're going to give it this little basic flame particle. That's going to let you know where it is so you can pick it up. And this is going to let players know if they're getting close to the really dangerous part of freezing. So remember, when we hit the Blizz score of 20, we actually start taking damage. So at 15, it's going to warn you, just in case you didn't see, in the action bar above your hotbar, you're freezing, find heat now. Next up, we're going to get into how the fire sprites work. So the first thing that we're doing is, pretty simply, if a player is right beside one of these little fire sprites, entirely reset the blizzard score. Next up, it's going to play this little particle. So once the player picks it up, it's going to play a bigger flame particle just to let the player know that, hey, it's kind of toasty now. We're going to play a little sound as well, just to make it even more clear to the player that their blizzard score has been reset. And finally, we're just going to kill the fire sprite, so that way it gets used up. Then what we're going to be doing is the actual particles. So this is going to say once your blizzard score is 1 or above, it's going to occasionally play this little snowflake particle in front of your face. And this is on a 9 tick delay, by the way. And all those subsequent ones, all the following ones, are going to be on a 1 tick delay. Now it's saying if your blizzard score is at 3 or above, it's going to play a different particle in front of your face. 5 or above, different particle. 7 or above, different particle. 9 or above, different particle. 12 or above, different particle. And finally, 15 or above, it's going to play a different particle. So I'm going to show the boss. I'm going to get into the blizzard just so you guys can see how this effect kind of looks. Just going to get it into its second phase real quick. Okay, so now as my blizzard score starts creeping up, you're going to see more and more particles start appearing on my face, and the wind sounds that you guys hear are going to start to get more frequent. So you guys can hear the blizzard's kind of building up because I'm not collecting heat. I'm getting really, really cold. Now I'm going to start to freeze, and this is basically how the effect works. It's going to start building up on my face, and it's going to be playing those sounds for me to hear, letting me know that the blizzard is all around me. That's what this chain does. And finally, we just have some extra effects. So you guys saw the particles. We're doing the same thing with the sounds that you guys just heard during that demonstration. 5 or above, it's going to be playing this sound. By the way, this is on a 30 tick delay. Then at 10 or above, it's going to be playing a slightly different Riptide sound. This is on a 13 tick delay. And finally, at 15 or above, a slightly different sound. And this is also on a 13 tick delay. This is going to make it so that the wind as well as the particles are building up the longer you're cold, and letting you know that you really need to get those fire sprites in order to warm up. And finally, this is going to be actually doing the damage. And I did lie, I said it was at 20, it's actually at 15. What this is going to do is that once you hit a 15 or higher on your blizzard score, you're going to start taking damage no matter where you are. This is on a 40 tick delay, so it's going to be 3 damage every other second. So every 2 seconds, you're going to get 3 ticks of freezing damage, but it's going to be constant damage until you pick up a fire sprite. So if you start freezing for too long, you're going to take a lot of damage over time. And the really cool thing about this attack is it's not necessarily a projectile that you have to dodge, but rather an environment that you kind of have to navigate. And the other cool thing is sometimes with bosses, you can just kind of stay far and pick away at them with a bow. If you try to do that with this boss, you're going to start freezing to death. And you actually need to go up to where the boss is in order to pick up those fire sprites and survive. But that is all the commands for this boss fight. And yes, I know it was a lot. And I didn't want to go too in depth on any of the commands because there's a lot of commands to cover. If you guys are confused by any of the commands, go ahead and join our Discord. A lot of people that are going to help you. Please, please, please join the Discord if you're confused. You can leave a comment, but please join the Discord. Make sure you guys are copying the commands exactly how you see them on screen. I did show you every command. Even if I didn't explain every command was shown on screen. You can pause the video and just record it yourself if you're trying to make this in your own world. And please, please, please just do it exactly how you see it on the screen. It won't work if you have them slightly differently. And this is also way more complex than my normal videos. So if you guys enjoyed that, make sure you leave a like or a comment or something like that, just letting me know that you like these more complicated videos. If not, that's fine. I try to make a combination of both simpler videos for newer players and more complex ones like these for more advanced players. But I just want to know what kind of content you guys would like to see. So do leave a comment if you want to see more complicated videos, or if this was too complex and you just want simpler videos, go ahead and leave that in a comment too, and I'll take that feedback in. But that's it in terms of the tutorial. If you guys want to stick around though, there's the full boss fight with me versus the boss that I showcased a little bit at the beginning of the video. So stick around and enjoy. Alright, I think I'm ready for this.